Welcome, welcome. I'm John, and I'm coming to you from Old London at Podshop Studios, where I'm lucky enough to be shooting this in the morning, which is a perfect time for champagne. Everybody thinks they know everything about it. You pop it at weddings. You got it on New Year's. You drink it in the morning, you drink it at night. But today I'm just talking about collecting champagne, which is a completely different game. Most people, even serious wine collectors, don't really even understand this. Bordeaux, we talked about estates. In Burgundy, we learned about the vineyards plus the producers. And in Champagne, we're just going to learn about time. Same house, same grapes, same vineyard, but the vintage, the disgorgement date, and how long it sat on lees sometimes makes all the difference between $50 and $5,000. So this video is not about the best champagne. It's not about my favorite champagnes. This is just for the new collector who needs the basics of collecting champagne, learn a little bit about the region, and learn what separates collectible champagnes from everything else. You have the houses, you have the grower movement, you have the vintages, and today we're going to learn about putting some of the good stuff away. So let's get into it. The very first thing that you need to understand is the method that makes this particular style of wine. Champagne is made using the Méthode champenoise. And I'm not going to go through the entirety of how champagne is made, but here's the basics. You make a still wine, you add your yeast and sugar to the bottle, and then a second fermentation gets triggered, and it happens inside the bottle, and that's why there's bubbles inside it. After that second fermentation, the dead yeast cells, they're called lees, they sit in the bottle for months, sometimes for years, sometimes for a decade or more. And that's what gives champagne what we think of as its complexity. It's like brioche, it's bread, it's toast, it's creamy. And then you riddle the bottles, and riddling is just turning them slightly with the neck down until that sediment collects. Then you freeze the neck, you pop the cap, the pressure shoots out of the plug, and that is called the disgorgement or the disgorgement. Now, I'm not going to go deep in the science, but this is what you need to understand. How long that champagne sits on lees and when it's disgorged, those are hidden variables that separate a good bottle from a great one from the same year. Now, let's talk about non-vintage because that is the backbone. Most champagne is NV, non-vintage. It's a blend of different years, and it's designed for consistency. So this is like a signature for that particular house. It's their calling card. Now, envy is not like lesser. It's just different by intent. And it's just not really what we're cellaring or talking about in a collector's video. Vintage champagne that is from a specific year, that's the collector's game. These are only declared in exceptional years, and the house saying this year is special enough to merit a stand of its own. And that's where the collectability is going to start. So you have prestige cuvées, which are the top of the pyramid. Here are a few of the names, and I bet you know a lot of them. Dom Perignon, Cristal, Cru Grand Cuvée, Comte de Champagne, La Grande Dame de Vauclicquot, Sir Winston Churchill. These are kind of like the first growths of champagne. These are the flagship bottlings from the very top houses. And this is where the real money and then that aging potential really lives. But here's where it starts getting interesting for collectors, because this champagne world has definitely split into two camps. The Grand Marquis is kind of the establishment brands. And these are really, really famous names. So we have Moet and Chandon, Veuve Clicquot, Krug, Bollinger, Louis Roederer, Paul Roger, Taittinger, Ruinart, Dom Perignon. These are things that you know of, and you probably actually pronounce them in English. So these houses are buying grapes from all across the region. And I mean, they have hundreds of local farmers that are growing the grapes for their brand. They have just massive reserves, and they have a ton of blending experience, and they have global distribution. For collectors, the prestige cuvées are just proven. They age beautifully. They have secondary market liquidity, and they're well documented. But let me kind of do some character sketches in the same way I did this for the first growths so that you could understand what you're looking for. So Krug is just an obsessive perfectionist. Their Grand Cuvée is technically NV, but it ages like a vintage wine. The real collector bottles are Clus de Menil, and Clos des Abonnés. And these are just single vineyard like holy grails. Dom Perignon is the icon. They only do vintage. So they never make a non-vintage. And then the collector play from their line is the P2 and P3, which are extended aging releases. So P2 is 16 years on these, and P3 is over 25 years. So these are like just totally different classes of wines. Louis Roederer with Cristal, which was originally made for the Tsar of Russia. Now, Cristal is like the celebrity champagne, but it is legitimately a world-class champagne. Roederer is just a very forward-thinking house too. It's totally biodynamic. Salon is the ultimate scarcity play. So there's one wine and there's only one grape. It is just Chardonnay. So remember, Champagne could have up to 3 grapes, Meunier, Pinot Noir, and Chardonnay. This only has Chardonnay. Salon is only from La Ménil. It's only made in great years, and there's only been 37 vintages since 1905. Think about that. There's only been 37 good enough years for them to make it in more than 100 years. Bollinger is like the James Bond champagne. The Viognier Francais is from ungrafted pre-phylloxera vines, and it's just one of the rarest wines in the world, period. Pol Roger was Churchill champagne. So their Sir Winston Churchill cuvée is the tribute to him. It's a serious wine. This is a serious collector wine. Taittinger has its Comte de Champagne. And so their Blanc de Blanc is a prestige cuvée, and it's the collector benchmark. It is 100% Chardonnay. It's elegant, and it ages beautifully. These are the established names. Let's go on to the revolution. These are the grower champagnes. Starting in the late 1990s, the early 2000s, small farmers who'd been selling their grapes to the big houses decided to start making their very own wine. What you want to look for is the letters RM, Rectolant, Manipulant, and it means the grower grew it and made it. So this is the champagne equivalent of what happened in Burgundy. It's very terroir focused, single vineyard, very small production. The collector's names in grower champagne. We start with Jacques Solos. This is the godfather. This turned grower champagne into a cult category. They have a Solera-based method. It's very oxidative. It's super polarizing to actually taste. And by the way, it's like super impossible to find. These prices have more than doubled. Eaglet Ourere is power and precision from Abonnés. It's got extended lees aging. These are serious collector bottles. Cédré Bouchard, their Roses Saint-Jean. It's a single vineyard. It's a single vintage. It's a single varietal. It's kind of like a radical minimalism. Pierre Peters, La Ménil, the Blanc de Blancs. So this is sharing the same village as Salon, but it's actually way cheaper than Salon, but really a spectacular champagne. Jackson, it's known for its number of cuvées, the 700 series, but every single bottle is a statement about that particular vintage. Oulet Colon is a tiny production. It's got a huge reputation. It's extra brut, low dosage. It's really a crisp, non-sweet, terroir-driven champagne. Collector question. Grand Marquis prestige cuvées are safe. They have a proven track record, and there's always a secondary market demand. Now, grower champagnes are more of a discovery play, so it's harder to find, there's less liquidity, but this cult following is growing very fast. Disgorgement dates do matter. So, this is the single biggest thing that separates collector knowledge from kind of casual knowledge. 2 bottles of the same Dom Perignon vintage are disgorged years apart, and they are going to taste completely different. So the late disgorgement, the Dom P2, the P3, the Bollinger RD, this is the Récemment Dégorgé, this is Krug's older releases. Those are going to all be a separate category entirely. You're going to look for the disgorgement date on the back label, or there's going to be a code, and then you're going to have to go online and look up the code, but this super matters. There's a hidden variable in here called dosage, okay? That's the amount of sugar that's added after disgorgement. I want to explain the scale just so you as a collector understand it. It becomes really important also when serving. So you have Brut Nature. It's 0 dosage, so they don't add any sugar. So it's very, very tart. You have extra brut, which is very low. Brut, the standard. Extra dry, which is actually sweeter. and then dry, which is sweeter still, and then demi-sec, which is like a dessert champagne. And this trend, by the way, has moved to lower dosage, and collectors drive that. But you have to know what you prefer or your guests prefer if you're serving it. But actually the dosage helps longevity just a little bit. So it's something to consider. And the aging potential is really, really real. Great vintage champagne can age like 20, 30, 40 years, but it changes a lot. The fresh fruit turns to brioche, to honey, nuts, mushroom, and not everyone loves aged champagne, and that's fine. As a collector, you should drink one young, cellar the rest, and then you'll start to understand the trajectory and kind of the velocity of bubbles and things like that that are going to change. The storage becomes even more critical than still wine. So champagne is more fragile. It's super sensitive to light, especially like clear bottles like Cristal. They have cellophane for a reason. Temperature fluctuation is an enemy. Vibration is an enemy. And remember, this is carbonated wine. If you're cellaring the serious champagne, professional storage is not like an option. Vintage question. Not every year is declared. Each house does their own independently. So a Dom Perignon might exist, but no Salon. They're different houses and they have different standards. But here's some great recent vintages just to keep in mind. 2002, 2004, 8, 12, 13, 15. 2008 in particular has become kind of legendary. Many houses made like super wines that year. And then there's some older ones, 96, 90, 88, 85. And they have serious pricing at auction. A little quick explainer on the styles. You have Blanc de Blanc. This is all Chardonnay. For collectors, this tends to age the longest. So Salon, Comte de Champagne, Clos de Mesnil. Blanc de Noir. Now this is actually all Pinot Noir, or it could also have Meunier. So it's a richer, more full-bodied. It's my personal preference. A rosé, which is blended with a still red wine or has just a little bit of skin contact. These rosé prestige cuvées are like becoming more and more collectible. So let's talk about champagne as investment versus Bordeaux and Burgundy. Now, champagne has historically been the third pillar of wine investment. It hasn't seen these explosive returns of top Burgundy, but it's more accessible and more liquid than Cult Burgundy. The Livex Champagne 50 Index tracks that market. It's been a steady performer. It's not been a rocket shipped. It's not been like Burgundy, but it's been consistent. And so what drives the champagne value on the secondary market, first of all, is the house reputation and prestige cuvée status, vintage quality, and their declaration rarity. So the fact that Salon has only declared in 37 and 120 years, when they do declare, the market pays more attention. Condition and provenance, especially storage. Champagne is super fragile. It's just more fragile than Burgundy and a lot more fragile than Bordeaux. Late disgorgement releases like P2, RD, and similar, they command premiums. Grower champagne is appreciating. The liquidity is super thin. It's harder to resell a bottle that nobody's heard of it. Price tiers for collectors getting started. Here's the entry level, $75 to $150, like a Bollinger Grand Année, a Paul Roger vintage, a Taittinger vintage. To your mid-range, this is going to be like $150 to $350. These are prestige cuvées from Dom Perignon, Cristal, Comte de Champagne. These are top grower bottlings too. Then you get into this serious range, so $350, $1,000 even. Krug, Dom P2, Salon is definitely expensive. Bollinger Viognier Francais. And then you get into the trophy ones. These are the $1,000 plus ones. Krug, Clos de Mesnil, Krug, Clos de Ambonnet, and some of the Salon back vintages, and then Dom, their P3. So let's talk about 2008 in particular because it's kind of a case study. The 2008s have just become a darling in the champagne market, and many houses release these late. So the 2008s usually start getting released about 2018 or 19. And they were exceptional, but the prices have climbed steadily ever since. This is actually a good example when buying on release would have been smart. You would have been on the ground floor and then the market would have done the rest. But buyer beware because you just don't know. Do you need prestige champagne to be a collector? So the honest answer is no. But understand it actually makes you a little bit better than everybody else, right? The practical entry points are to start with vintage champagnes from houses you enjoy. Let's just say you like Veuve Clicquot. You might have seen in my house that I have a number of their bottles. Well, try the Grand Dame. You like Paul Roger. Go ahead, try the Sir Winston Churchill. So just start with the ones that you know, and then try one grower champagne to see if you like it. You know, a Pierre Bitter or a Jackson. You just don't have to go and buy a Solos, for example. If you're going to cellar, buy in cases or buy the half dozen. You want to track it as it evolves. It's kind of the fun of it. And then just don't overlook Blanc de Blanc for aging potential. All Chardonnay champagne just tends to have the longest runway. You could also have the drink one, cellar one rule. So buy 6 bottles of a great vintage, drink one now, then open one every 3 years. And then you learn a lot about champagne from just this exercise. And you're going to learn a lot more from this video or any book or any class that you can make. And by the way, this is true of almost any type of collecting. It's just about like reps and tasting and experience to know what you're buying and whether it's worth cracking open during the next special occasion when you have guests over, or whether you even want to buy it at all. Where do collectors buy champagne? Allocations from top retailers for Salon and Cru Clos and Grower Champagnes sell out. So you're just going to have to be on the list, and you're going to have to communicate with your retail partner, whether that's a local wine shop or a large national chain, how you want it. Now, auction houses also have back vintages, so Sotheby's and Christie's and Acker and Zacky's. This is where you're going to find the 96 Dame or the 88 Salon. You can also buy from growers if you visit the region. Some don't export, and that's part of the hunt, so you're going to oftentimes have to find a local champagne exporter who will get it to the United States for you if you're in the US or across Europe if you're there. And then there's others. There's the wine merchants that I've mentioned before, K&L. There is Berry Brothers and Rudd, which opened up in the United States. Storage is super important. Consistent temperatures, 50 to 55 degrees Fahrenheit, no swings, no light, especially for those clear bottles, the Cristal. The light degrades champagne more than anything. And then vibration, super important because champagne has bubbles in it. And that humidity is the same. And it's really important that you have provenance and that you keep it. Keep all that paperwork if you're going to professionally store it. Also consider magnums. If you're cellaring champagne long-term, magnums are actually the right move. Magnum is 1.5 liters. It's basically 2 standard bottles in 1 bottle. But here's why they age better. The ratio of wine to oxygen is actually more favorable. The cork is the exact same size, and there is that same amount of air exchange, but twice the volume of wine. So it just means slower aging generally, less oxidation. But the result of that is pretty cool in champagne. A 20-year-old Magnum of Dame will be fresher and more vibrant than that same 20-year-old standard bottle from the same vintage. And it's not very subtle. You can really taste the difference, mostly from the carbonation, but also from the development. Here's the practical side. Magnums are much easier to find from the big houses. So Dom Perignon and Cristal and Krug and Bollinger, they produce magnums of their prestige cuvée. Grower champagnes, most don't make them at all, and it's just because their production is so small. Especially in champagne, magnums rightfully command a premium at resale. Pretty much all collectors, auction buyers know that they age better, and so you pay more up front, but you're getting a better bottle and a better resale value later. And it's one of the few cases in wine where the more expensive format is actually a smarter buy for the collector. What to look for? You're going to look for OWCs, the original wooden cases. Sometimes it'll say OGP, original gift packaging for resale. You're going to check those disgorgement dates when buying the older bottles. You're going to avoid bottles that have been stored upright for a longer term. The cork's going to dry out, and then the pressure will start to escape. Provenance matters so much. It's even more so than any still wine. Red flags, super important. If the price is just significantly below market, something's wrong. If there's unknown storage history, if you don't know where it's been, just walk away. Cloudy, flat-looking champagne is a storage failure usually. And anyone with just a huge quantity of rare bottles. So Salon, for example, makes a tiny amount. If somebody has a whole case of that just sitting around, just ask some questions. So let's talk about champagne's place in a balanced collection. Bordeaux is your foundation, Burgundy is your depth. Champagne is like range. It's just something you could open on any occasion. And at the collector levels, it rewards patience and knowledge just as much as the others. But the unique advantage, unlike Bordeaux and Burgundy, great champagne doesn't require decades of aging to enjoy. You can enjoy the prestige cuvées young and love them. They hold them until release until they are ready to drink. You can age them, discover something different, It's just great because the flexibility is a total gift for collectors, and you will always have almost everybody ready to knock down the door and drink your champagne. Champagne does come down to a couple things for a collector. You got to know the differences between the house and the growers. You got to understand the vintage and the disgorgement. You have to store it properly, but you just don't need to start with Salon or Krug Clos de Mesnil. You start with a great vintage from a house you like, you put a few bottles away, open one now, the next one in 3 years, and you learn. If any of this is helpful to you, subscribe and drop a comment below. What's your favorite champagne and what is it that you are cellaring right now? Cheers.